Joining us is the host of Capitalism Hits Home, Dr. Harriet Fraad. Hi, Dr. Fraad. Can you hear me?
I certainly can. Can you hear me too?
Yes. I want to talk about whatever you want to talk about. Do you try to figure out why these Republicans are telling their constituents not to get vaccinated? Or they're not saying not to get vaccinated. They're saying, if you want to, you can get vaccinated. Very quietly. That's what they do.
I think the left has got to understand that a lot of the country, for very good reasons, does not trust the pharmaceutical establishment. I certainly don't either, and doesn't trust the government either. And they've been lied to. It's why the minority population, after the Tuskegee experiment where they gave Black people syphilis and didn't cure them, and other things, forced sterilizations and things like that have been part of Black history. So some people don't trust either what the government is telling them or what health care workers are telling them, or what the pharmaceutical industry is doing to their bodies.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me for 1 second. If the Republicans don't trust the pharmaceutical companies so much, why don't they make them negotiate the price for Medicare? They trust the pharmaceutical companies to price these drugs fairly, but they don't trust the contents of the drugs.
They trust them to profit and to give to their campaigns, and that's what it's all about for them. And they pander to their population's disbelief in the government, to their sense of being dispossessed and lied to and taken over by big corporations. Those are things the left should understand, and those are things we should address. I understand why people won't want to take the vaccine. I don't agree with it. I'm vaccinated. I feel like, okay, whatever the pharmaceutical companies are profiting, and they always are, and whatever is going down, the secondary effects of these vaccines long-term, I don't even think I'll be around long-term. That's fine with me. Okay, all right.
Well, there are no secondary effects. You really believe it?
It doesn't seem that there are yet. We didn't really have time to test them over the long term. But all things considered, it's a good idea to get a vaccination. In fact, 83% of the new cases are on non-vaccinated people, and that's for the Delta variant.
Oh, excuse me for 1 second. No. The CDC just said 99.9% of all new cases are among the unvaccinated.
Well, that's great. The figure that I saw last week was 83.
Today, the CDC.
Okay, let's say 99. I think that's great. I believe that one should get vaccinated. I believe in it strongly. But I also believe that the left should understand why people are skeptical and not just call them stupid. It is a stupid decision not to get vaccinated. All things considered, it's the best thing. But we also have to understand why people distrust the government and the pharmaceutical industries, because they're both highly culpable. So, we should be more compassionate and we should be more understanding, because just calling those people dumb is not a good idea. And the Republicans don't care if these people die. They are anti. They have nothing to propose that will help people except to express their rage and disbelief. And that's what they do.
Right.
They don't offer anything positive. So that's why.
Right. It's a little infuriating, and it's a little maddening to walk into a bodega, to walk into a restaurant in New York City or a supermarket and see somebody not wearing their mask.
Absolutely. It's awful.
And you think, gee, I don't want to call you stupid. You may be killing me.
Right. You want to get out of that bodega as fast as you can and say, I'm not comfortable here. That's fine. And there ought to be a mask mandate indoors in New York and wherever you are. I agree with that. And I think it's dangerous. Look, I have a client who was in a demonstration where the cops said disperse and then kettled them with barriers so they couldn't disperse and arrested them all, then tore off his mask and threw him in the paddy wagon. And even though he was vaccinated, he got a case of COVID, but it wasn't severe. It was like a bad cold.
The doctor you introduced us to, I forgot his name. He was arrested and thrown in with about 100 other protesters, no masks and no water. It was like we were a third world nation. This was last summer.
That's right.
My rage, I mean, you treat people, you treat our minds. I'm tired of worrying about how the 100 million Americans who won't get vaccinated feel. Now, I do understand that if you're a working mother, a single mother or a single dad working, it is exceptionally hard in some places to get vaccinated. I do understand that.
It shouldn't be so hard. Look, all I'm saying is the left would be better off with compassionate inquiry as to what's going on and trying to find some bond than it is with just calling people stupid.
Well, Bryce Covert had a great piece in the New York Times over the weekend explaining that among the 99%, there are financial hardships associated with getting a vaccine. For example, everybody I know who got the second dose of the Pfizer, needed their fainting couch and they had the vapors and they said, oh my God, I don't feel too good. I'm going to phone in sick today. And that is a first world problem. 99% of Americans don't have the luxury of going to the fainting couch and saying, I didn't feel well after the second shot, which many people don't feel well after the second shot. So you're right. A lot of people can't afford to feel bad for a day.
You'd have to have a national mandate that everyone has to get vaccinated, and anyone who isn't feeling well gets 3 days off.
And $100. I think Biden has talked about it, and I understand in New York City they're proposing to give people $100
That's
to get
good, because that will cover some days off, and they should be getting 3 days off after the vaccine if they need it.
Yes,
and guaranteed, and nobody could be penalized.
Right. So I guess my rage, I'm glad I'm talking to you, because I've been so angry at the 100 million people who still haven't gotten vaccinated here in the United States. And it is an issue of poverty, of slave wages, where people have to choose between getting vaccinated and taking a day off, or getting vaccinated and knowing that tomorrow they're going to have to phone in sick because they may not
go to work sick, whatever.
Go to work sick. So I do that, but I'm talking about the stubbornly ignorant, the people who say,
there are
I'm doing my own research. I've done my own research. I don't trust doctors. Go F yourself. You don't trust doctors.
Even if you don't trust doctors, all things considered, you should get a vaccination. And our government should require it, just like we require smallpox vaccines and we require whooping cough in order to go to a school, and measles and mumps and chickenpox. And if you go to foreign countries, they require, you get a vaccine against African sleeping sickness and a whole bunch of other things. It should be required. People pander to the ignorant in our country, pander to the right wing every chance they get, and that's pathetic. I agree with you on that. But also, we are in a country that is so grotesquely unequal. The figures came out. 44% of Americans have had a 3.3% raise in wages in terms of what they could really purchase since 1979. 44%. Those are called low-waged workers. And in 5 states, there is no even minimum wage, thanks to the outrageous but present minimum wage of the government. They have to pay $7.25 an hour unless they put people in jail right and left, and then they can use them as slaves. However, you really, you have to look at what's going on here. People in the higher wage sectors got a 63 point something increase between 1979 and 2020. CEOs got about a 940% increase. The highest paid managers, 1,000% increase. And so what is happening is these, quote, essential workers that are supposed to be so important can't even live. And now they say that there's 9.2 million people who refuse to go back to work. But there is no company that pays higher wages and gives educational benefits and a chance to get ahead on the job, some kind of future. There's no shortage on those jobs.
Right.
And what the Republicans want to do is take away the $300 supplemental insurance for unemployment so that those people who would only make $300 a week anyway, working full time, will have to go back to work or starve. And that is savage. This country has become savagely unjust. And what's the good news about it in this outrageous injustice is that labor organizing is going on right and left. That in Alabama, they had that big Southern convention. People came all over the United States. Thousands of people came to support the United Mine Workers. That there is, and even the researchers at UCal, all the branches are now unionized. People are unionizing across the board. And there's an awareness that there is a class issue, which has been repressed here since the anti-communism, anti-socialism, and anti-labor of the 1950s and the McCarthy era. But we are we're in such trouble, which is why they can't do what other countries have done, which is mandate a vaccine or have the government trusted enough, like in New Zealand. So Jacinda Ardern tells people they have to stay home when COVID happened. They stay home. Or our country didn't close up our borders and didn't make people stay home, which is why we have the most COVID deaths in the world. We are 4% of the population. We have 20% of the world's dead from COVID. And that's today's America, which has to change.
The Commonwealth Fund, not a left-wing organization, did a study of 11 high-income countries. They do this every year, and they concluded that America has the worst healthcare system among 11 high-income countries. The worst.
And the most expensive, don't forget that.
And the most expensive.
Right. It's an outrage. A country like Portugal, which is basically poor, or the Czech Republic, they have free education. They also have free healthcare, and they have higher wages.
It is, again, I don't want to pick on the Democratic Party because I know how bad the Republicans are, but I've written the Republicans off. Yeah. Joe Manchin and the Democrats, they are a catastrophic moral failure.
They are total moral failure.
Joe Manchin somehow is able to afford a $750,000 houseboat, and he comes off the boat and declares, I've had it with that $300 extra in unemployment benefits. He literally said, I've had it with that benefit. Nobody can find anybody to work because of that. And I'm not going to vote for it to be renewed come autumn. He's had it with that extra $300 a week. His daughter is a pharmaceutical pirate. He's partying on a close to $1 million yacht on a senator's salary, and he's had it with that supplemental $300. He literally, a Democrat, is saying, my friends can't find anybody to work. We have to get rid of that $300 extra a week. That's a Democrat.
That's right. That's a Democrat. And the other Democrats don't police him and don't reject him like they do AOC. The Democratic Party is in the corporate capitalist pocket, depending on their cash, just like the Republican Party. There are progressive Democrats. There is a People's Party starting, but it is, it depends on the same corporate money. And so it is compromised from the beginning. And we have to have actually a democratic choice, a choice of non-capitalist parties as well as capitalist parties, like all these other countries do, you know?
Now, you're one of the founding mothers of women's liberation. Mm-hmm. And we have watched Andrew Cuomo maintain his power. And we've watched the Time's Up organization compromised by a lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, who said time's up, which means the time of men abusing, sexually harassing, raping, assaulting women is over. Time's up. But Roberta Kaplan is an attorney. So she runs Time's Up, but she's also an advisor to Andrew Cuomo and helped him draft a letter that was going to destroy the reputation of Lindsey Boylan, the first worker who came forward to say that Andrew Cuomo sexually harassed, maybe assaulted her. So how do you reconcile somebody like Roberta Kaplan, a lawyer who runs Time's Up and at the same time helps Andrew Cuomo draft a letter besmirching the reputation of Lindsey Boylan, who bravely stepped forward and exposed Andrew Cuomo for the sexual assaulter that he is? I mean, he's facing criminal charges now.
He should face criminal charges. Not only that, but on lying about the nursing home deaths from COVID to protect his investor friend who bankrolled him, and also working with the Satmar religious group so that they can vote in two places at once, registering as Democrats in one place, Republicans in another, and doing all sorts of crooked, monstrous things. And I
want to ask you about women, because there are some women who, they're the victims in this. In the concentration camps, they had the capos, the Jews who kind of worked with the commandant, with Mengele. These women who enabled Bill Clinton and Andrew Cuomo. I understand that. I understand abuse and how you take on the attributes of the abuser. But if you're Roberta Kaplan, the head of Time's Up,
that's
and
outrageous.
You're helping Andrew Cuomo, she should be disbarred.
Well, I think that is an outrage. And I think that I'm glad that women are stepping forward on the whole bullying culture, including sexual aggression, which is, just in line with Epstein and Roger Ailes and everyone, all these other people. In fact, there's a sort of joking thing being sent around on feminist websites. They should prevent men from running for governor. Between Spitzer and Cuomo, it's poison. Well, I think that's wrong. I think that to say every man sexually assaults women isn't fair, but to say that sexual assault and access has been a perk of male power is correct. And people like Hillary Clinton excusing her husband for his serial abuses, and our whole country blaming the victim instead of Bill Clinton. That isn't fair. Monica Lewinsky is known all over.
Right.
She was 22. He was old enough to be her dad and should have known better. There is an allowability of sexual abuse in our culture. I don't think that Kaplan's work for Cuomo is excusable. I don't know what's between them or what corruption.
She's his lawyer. She's his lawyer, and she said, as a lawyer, I can't answer any questions about my involvement with Cuomo.
Yeah, well, a lawyer is basically a whore, whoever pays.
Yes, thank you.
And so,
why do people think they're saving money when they put a lawyer in charge of an organization. They think, a lawyer will save us on legal bills. So let's make sure he has a law degree. Lawyers are so afraid of advising anybody on legal issues. I've never met a lawyer who was in charge of something who opined on the legality of something because they're so afraid of being held accountable. They see both sides. They've been trained to see both sides. I mean, they literally will defend the Holocaust.
Yes, they are.
Because they're worthless.
Whoever they're paid by is the person they defend, no matter who that is. Legal aid lawyers are a different thing. They're taking on people who have been discriminated against because they don't have the money and trying, if they're honest, to be honest lawyers for them. But,
right.
It's one of these disgusting professions. We could, in this country, raise a lot of money and have every party have equal amount of money for elections. You would have to abolish the practice of corporate tax law and
right.
personal tax law. In China, I'm not saying China's heaven, but they want to tackle inequality because, we're saying poor workers in the United States, 44% of them got a 3.3% raise between 1979 and 2020. The UN just cited China for taking 850 million people out of poverty, more than has ever been done. And they want greater equality, so they immediately abolished all tutoring services because wealthy people would get tutors for their kids so they'd get into the prestigious schools and universities. We could do that in a minute. We could abolish tax havens. And if the Cayman Islands didn't like it, they wouldn't want to be invaded. Of course, they would go along. And so would every other country. We could do that.
Yep.
But the interest isn't there with two capitalist parties, both on the corporate dole. Also, somebody wrote in the chat room, Governor Spitzer was taken down by corporations and Wall Street. It is true that you cannot criticize the banks and want to hold them accountable while you're flying prostitutes across state lines to have sex with them.
Right.
You have to watch your dick if you want to criticize banks.
Yes.
It's a combination.
By the way, Jamie Dimon had a piece in the Sunday Times talking about how important it is to hire prisoners. And this is the man who should have gone to prison 12 years ago. Maybe he knows something about a Justice Department investigation that we don't. Before you go, Dave Cyrus is here, and everybody has been so kind to do the show at the last minute. This is an abbreviated version of the show. I think parties are great. People should throw parties. I think if you turn 60, you should throw a big party. Because when you throw a big party, especially if you're an ex-president who's approaching $100 million and you can afford a home on Martha's Vineyard, if you have that kind of money to throw around, you can really throw a great party and everybody benefits. Caterers, performers, small businesses. It's a great thing to throw a 60th birthday party and spread the money around like fertilizer because it grows. Except if you throw the party on Martha's Vineyard, Obama. That party, I don't care about the COVID. I'm pretty sure nobody caught COVID. They had a protocol officer. I'm sure that.
Yes, they probably did.
Yes, but to throw that party on Martha's Vineyard, if we lose the midterms, that will be one of the reasons why. It was the height. It was the paragon of tone deafness. While 99% of this country is fearing evictions, the Democrats are partying till 4 a.m. on Martha's Vineyard. He couldn't throw that party in Chicago.
Oh, right, exactly. He's also Obama's private library museum in Chicago is being built on public parkland, and it's being built where people can't get there by mass transit. This isn't only tone deaf. This is capitalist ideology. And just because the man is brown doesn't mean that he didn't betray the people of America and poor people particularly.
Right.
You know, race and class are not the same thing. And people, look, they had an icon, that was nice, but he cheated them blind. In 2008, more Black people lost their homes than anyone else.
Yes.
And he helped the banks instead. So that just because he's brown does not mean that he stands up for the rights of the majority of his people. Right. That's a racist mistake.
But Michelle is going to do a podcast with Harry, Prince Harry, and open up about her low-grade depression. You know, maybe if she spent a little more time helping the people of Chicago, she wouldn't be so depressed. How dare you talk that way? You don't know what she does for Chicago. That's right, I don't. I don't see her marching for livable wages. I don't see her, anyway, I don't see him. He's a disgrace. He's a disgrace.
And so I see these are people whose values are bourgeois values, who don't care about the mass of Americans and have written them off.
Yeah.
And that's who has to get together to change this place.
Who makes the cut? That the products of these exclusive clubs. He belongs to a club a golf club in Martha's Vineyard where it's a $350,000 initiation fee, and then it's like, you know, $50,000 a year to golf at this club. And then the cut. Who got cut from his party? Who got cut? Letterman and Conan. Why? They're not on the air anymore. It is just brutal. We have to wrap it up. It's disgusting.
It is disgusting. And capitalism, it brings out the most disgusting in people. We need socialism.
Yes. Well, thank you for doing the show and accommodating.
Thank you. And thank you for being such a kind, good partner that you went and helped your partner get what she needed medically. That's a wonderful thing. And
hopefully there'll be something in it for me. Everything is transactional. So I'll have to negotiate something in return for me.
Love, maybe. Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Harriet Fraad.
Thank you.